What if reality is just a programmed simulation? Today, you'll see 10 historical coincidences that make absolutely no sense. From a book that predicted the Titanic down to the smallest detail, to a man killed by a bullet fired 20 years earlier. Get ready, because you won't believe these stories. Imagine sharing the exact same fate without ever knowing it. In 1975, identical twin brothers, John and Arthur Moforth, lived separately, about 80 miles apart in England. Both men had been healthy their entire lives. Everything changed on the night of May 22nd. Around midnight, John suffered sudden, massive chest pains. At that exact second, miles away, Arthur began gasping for air with identical symptoms. Ambulances rushed them to 2 different hospitals at approximately the same time. Doctors in both buildings fought for their lives, but to no avail. Both brothers died of a heart attack shortly after arrival, completely unaware of each other's condition. The universe intertwined their lives until the very last second. Sometimes history hides codes right in plain sight. In 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria was assassinated in Sarajevo. This tragedy inside an open-top car instantly sparked World War I. However, the ultimate mystery was etched onto the license plate of that fateful vehicle. It read AIII 118. To most, these were just random characters. Yet World War I officially ended with the armistice signed on November 11, 1918. Look at the license plate again, and a chilling prophecy appears. The letter A stands for armistice. The following numbers, 11, 11, 18. The King's car carried the exact end date of the war 4.5 years before it even began. World War I claimed millions of lives, but the fate of 2 British soldiers borders on incredible mystique. 17-year-old John Parr was the very first British soldier killed in the war in August 1914 near the Belgian town of Mons. Long 4 years later, just 90 minutes before the armistice was signed in November 1918, George Edwin Ellison fell in the exact same area. He became the very last British soldier killed in action. The most mind-blowing detail, however, awaits at the St. Symphorien Military Cemetery in Mons. When authorities randomly buried thousands of fallen soldiers after the war, fate intervened. The graves of John Parr and George Ellison lie completely by chance, directly facing each other. They are just 6 meters apart, the first and last punctuation mark of wartime madness. Coincidence can intertwine the fates of families in ways that leave you shivering. Late in 1864, Robert Todd Lincoln, son of American President Abraham Lincoln, stood on a crowded train platform in New Jersey. In the chaotic press of the crowd, he lost his footing and fell off the platform, trapped right under the wheels of a moving train. At that moment, all hope seemed lost. Suddenly, a stranger quickly grabbed him by the collar, powerfully pulling him back to safety. Robert instantly recognized the man as Edwin Booth, a famous Shakespearean actor, and thanked him deeply. Edwin had no idea he'd just saved the president's son. The most mind-blowing part? Just a few months later, Edwin's own brother, John Wilkes Booth, assassinated Robert's father, Abraham Lincoln. Some people are connected to the universe itself more deeply than we can imagine. The famous writer Mark Twain was born in November 1835. It was the exact day a rare celestial phenomenon, Halley's Comet, appeared in the sky, an event that occurs only once every 75 years. In 1909, Twain made a public statement that everyone dismissed as a simple joke. He said, "I came in with Halley's Comet, and I expect to go out with it. It will be the greatest disappointment of my life if I don't." The universe obeyed his words to the letter. Mark Twain died of a heart attack on April 21st, 1910, just one day after Halley's Comet reached its closest approach to Earth again. He arrived and departed with the comet. Some people attract disasters, but possess an incredible gift to survive them. Violet Jessup worked as an ocean liner stewardess and became a living miracle. In 1911, she was on board the Olympic when it nearly sank after colliding with a warship. A year later, she transferred to the Titanic. When the giant struck an iceberg, Violet helped women into lifeboats and escaped in one of the last ones. Yet her terrifying journey didn't end there. During World War I, she served as a nurse on the hospital ship Britannic. When the vessel hit a mine and sank, Violet was sucked underwater directly into the spinning propellers. Despite a severe head injury, she survived. 3 of history's greatest maritime disasters. One single, unsinkable woman. Some coincidences border on absolute mathematical impossibility. In July 1974, 17-year-old Erskine Lawrence Eben was riding a moped down a street in Hamilton, Bermuda. He was struck by a taxi at full speed and did not survive. A tragic yet unfortunately common story. But that was only the beginning. Exactly 1 year later, in July 1975, Erskine's older brother, Neville, who was also 17, was riding the very same moped down that exact street. At the same spot, a car hit him. It was the exact same taxi, driven by the very same driver. To make things even more unbelievable, the taxi was carrying the exact same passenger as the previous year. An identical tragedy. Same moped, location, driver, and passenger. In 1893, Henry Ziegland of Texas broke up with his girlfriend. Heartbroken, the young woman took her own life, and her brother vowed revenge. He tracked Henry down, shot at him, and believing he had killed him, turned the gun on himself. However, Henry survived. The bullet only grazed his face and embedded itself into the trunk of a large backyard tree. 20 years later, in 1913, Henry decided to cut down that very same massive tree. Finding the task too difficult, he packed the trunk with dynamite. The blast blew the tree to pieces, but the force of the explosion also dislodged the old bullet still hidden inside the wood. The projectile flew out at high speed, striking Henry directly in the head. The bullet finally found its target 20 years later. In 1898, a full 14 years before the most famous maritime disaster in history, American author Morgan Robertson wrote a novella titled Futility. The story described a luxurious, massive ocean liner that is widely considered absolutely unsinkable. However, during an April night in the Atlantic, the ship struck an iceberg and plunged to the bottom, taking thousands of passengers with it due to a critical shortage of lifeboats. This fictional vessel in the book was named the Titan. Yet the matching name is just the beginning. Robertson's fictional Titan had a nearly identical length, achieved the same speed, and sank in the exact same location as the real Titanic did in 1912. The author predicted the details with terrifying accuracy 14 years before the Titanic was even designed. We have reached the absolute peak, where reality completely defies all fiction. On July 28, 1900, King Umberto I of Italy visited a small restaurant in the town of Monza. When the owner approached him, the king suffered an absolute shock. The man looked exactly like him. He was his perfect doppelganger. But that was only the beginning. As they spoke, they discovered they were born on the exact same day, in the same town, and both married a woman named Margherita. The owner opened his restaurant on the very day Umberto was crowned king. This unbelievable cosmic joke, however, had a terrifying finale. The next morning, the restaurant owner was accidentally shot and killed. The king expressed deep condolences, but just hours later, an anarchist assassinated him in the crowd. Born together, died together.